Yeah. Hello, and welcome to the Human Design stream inside the Coherence Lab channel. I'm here today with three friends and colleagues who are all projector types. And so I thought it might be fun to just bring them on and just have a conversation because I think part of what's tricky about human design is that it's just really, it looks complex. And I think part of what I'd like to do in this space is to just make it more practical, make it more understandable from a real human embodied experience. So I thought, let's just talk to some humans with bodies. So welcome to the three of you. I'm just going to pass it over to each of you individually to give yourself a little bit of time to just tell us something about you. Jyoti, you're in my upper left. I'll just start with you.
Okay, thank you. Um, I've been an astrologer and a writer for most of my adult life, and I also am really drawn to shamanic work. And that's about it. I mean, I could go into my personal life. I'm a mother of children and a grandmother and a great grandmother, and I love what I do.
All right. I love that. Thank you. How about you, Linda?
I am trained as a clinical social worker and have had a practice for many, many years. And about 20 years ago, I decided that I wanted to practice a more holistic approach. And that has taken me on a very interesting journey into energy psychology and internal family systems and um, more recently, since June of 2022, I got involved with the People's Health Alliance and became a founding member of the People's Health Alliance in the United States. Um, and that has opened up the world, actually, so that now I have contacts all over the world, which I find really exciting. As a projector type, that probably fits. And yeah, I'm happy to be here and talk to other projector types about what it's like to be us.
I love that. Perfect. How about you, Janet?
Hi, I'm Janet Kessenich. I am currently the work that I do now is as an energy healing practitioner. I use sound and vibration, which kind of links back to my first iteration of life work, which was as a musician and a pianist. Left all of that a good 25 years ago, but ended up drawing on sound and vibration into my healing practice. So I use tuning forks and Tibetan singing bowls, drums, rattles, the whole collection. And I use this work because I think of our energy work as being about our vibrational field. And just as a violin can go out of tune, we go out of tune on a fairly easily regular basis, I think. So using sound and vibration to retune us is logical to me in a certain way. A few years ago, also began doing work as an Akashic Records reader, and that has been quite fascinating and has a nice tie-in with the energy work that I do as well, because that work, of course, is intuitively guided. I work with the chakra system and a modality that taps into guidance. And so the guidance with the Akashic Records has a familiar feeling and it is different. All of this work is aimed probably for all of us too, and not to speak for everyone, but just to help people be more comfortable and aligned in their lives and more empowered in who they are. So how that all ties in as a projector, I'm sure you're going to help make very clear, Christine.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I'm going to make it very clear, but it is very clear to me that the three of you are doing what projector types are said to be here to do, which is guide, right?
Yes.
Guide energy. And it's true, you've all said, I'm here doing energy work, right? So I think that that's really lovely that you've all found that for yourselves. And it makes me wonder how many projector types might be in these positions, right? That just naturally found this way to be in the world. Um, I just want to share the screen really quickly. I thank you all for giving me that information, and I just want to show you to each other from a human design standpoint and to the audience, just so they can see like the projector type. We think about it in human design as this kind of very open definition. Often projectors don't have a lot of defined energy centers in their system. That can be true, but the three of you are actually really good examples of the range, right? Projector types can be the whole range. They can have just two centers defined. They can have eight centers defined. What makes them the projector type is not having a defined sacral center. That's the thing that unites all of you. You don't have that constant life force energy to call on like a generator type does, right? And so let me see if I can share this screen. And I'll just show you just briefly so everyone can just get a sense. Can y'all see that?
Mhm.
Okay. So this is Jyoti's chart, right? And Jyoti is I put her up first because she is what I would consider like the classic projector type, like somebody that has just a little bit of definition and a whole lot of openness, right? And so in human design, we look at that as like these are the pieces inside of her that are fixed, that are always on. This is an emotional solar plexus, and she has this root energy. And so she would be considered actually an energy projector because she has these motor centers running. The sacral is a motor as well, the heart is a motor. So she may have more energy than either like the story is about projectors that they need a lot of rest. And I think that is true. Even as an energy projector, having an open sacral means you need a lot of time on your own to be away from the energy of generator types, essentially. So she has a lot of openness. And then Linda has a bit less openness, right? So she has her spleen. She's a splenic projector. So her authority is different from Jyoti's. Jyoti has this emotional wave that she needs to ride to understand what's right for her over time. But Linda is a very in the moment person. It's best for her to pay attention to what's going on in the world and make those decisions in the moment. And she has a little bit more definition than Jyoti. She has this throat center lit up, this is her manifestation center, and her identity center, right? So she has this consistent sense of direction and love in the world. And then Janet has all kinds of definition. um, Again, she still has this open sacral, but she's got all these motor centers lit up. So she too is an energy projector. Throat, and then she even has this defined ajna. So she has this real strong connection between her head energy and her throat, the ability to speak her mind. So I've just showed the three of you those. Do you three have any questions about any of that? Did it bring anything up for any of you?
I have a curiosity with Janet's that we're looking at right now. The two upper, the throat and the
Yep.
head.
Yep.
Does that kind of give more of an ease for like channeling for speaking what you see?
Yeah. So we often say that so the defined ajna is just more fixed, right? Wherever we have definition, we have that constant energy, and it can be in the ajna, it can be more fixed, like this is where our opinions and ideas and conceptualizations live in the world. And so I wouldn't necessarily say that she has more ability to receive information necessarily, but she may have more ability to actually articulate it back out to others. Anything else before I stop sharing and then go back to just chatting? So anyway, that's the range of, and that's, not the full range, but it is a nice range. I think it is nice that you each show a very different definition around being a projector type. So I'll stop that. We'll go back. And so, and I'll just say a little bit more about projectors in the world, which is, you're a minority on the planet, right? Just 20% of humans are projector types. And so, one thing we hear a lot in human design is that projectors from a very early age feel a bit out of sync, maybe, or a bit different. They feel their differentness. And in part, I think that may come exactly from their type, their aura, right? Our type is our energetic aura. And so a projector type has what they say is a focused and penetrating aura. And so when you're with somebody, you are with that person. You can see into that person in a really keen way, in a way that, especially as children, I think could feel unusual. Like you don't see other people in your life who are mostly generator types being that good at focusing on the other and recognizing what makes them special, what makes them amazing, or what they're struggling with, right? You may have seen all of that as children. So I'm just curious if that resonates for any of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't understand as a child that other people weren't seeing what I was seeing, and I often wondered why they didn't see what I was seeing. But it did make me feel different. And we were talking the other day, and I said, I saw things in people, and then when I would speak what I saw, I had to really step back a bit because people did not embrace my willingness to do this. And it actually made me really quiet for a while because I was so good at reading people's reaction to my seeing them and their discomfort with that, that I just said, okay, I gotta, I gotta back way down here. It's not really completely safe for me to say everything that I'm seeing.
Yeah.
I would agree, Linda. I had a lot of those kinds of experiences as a child. I could see, but if I went to articulate what I saw, I mean, from my point of view now, looking back, I feel like I was seeing, a person's blind side, like their shadow. And if I brought it out, the other person couldn't see that in themselves. And so they denied it. And then I was left wondering, did I really see what I thought I saw? It gave me that almost self-doubt sometimes. But I have a family story that when I was 4 years old, I think my father told me to do something I didn't want to do. And I looked at him and he said, if looks could kill, I'd be on the floor.
I have a story like that from when I was about 4 years old as well. My mother wanted me to pick something up that I had spilled all over the floor, and I just wasn't going to do it. And she called her mother and said, "What do I do?" And her mother said, "Get down on the floor and pick it up with her."
Wise grandmother.
Yes.
Love that. Janet, any of that resonate for you or not?
I'm really sitting here thinking and sitting with that, and it does not leap out.
Cool.
I'm thinking back. I mean, there are plenty of childhood stories to tell, but none that resonate in quite that way. I don't. That does not feel like a ping. A match for me.
Interesting. Huh.
I'll be curious to kind of sit with that a bit, but I feel that in some ways we're talking about intuition and such, and that I guess that's where I identify more with this aspect. And that really awakened for me much more in, 25 years ago when I started doing energy work. So to have experienced it growing up, it's not as clear for me, but I'm going to ponder that a little bit.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I'm curious for you, Janet, when you and I talked and you found out this thing about you being a projector type, it's curious, like a lot of times people actually, when they're projector types, are like, oh my gosh, that totally resonates. But I'm curious for you, did it or did it not?
it did not
Mm,
just light me up as that's me.
right.
And I was aware of that coming into this conversation that I might not have as much to contribute in that way, but maybe that's also, hopefully that's helpful too, that not everyone will immediately see themselves as a particular type and, be able just to be comfortable with that,
Yeah.
as a type, but not necessarily the be all end all to who you are or how you perceive yourself, let's say, how you resonate with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's it, right? It's the whole range. We all, of course, deal with or experience it all differently. But I think too, from a human design perspective, that's also a place where we look at like conditioning, right? And so it's interesting to me because we say in human design that, where we're more open, we're more subject and more likely to be conditioned. And of the
Mhm.
three of the people in this panel, you are the most defined, right? And so but you do have that defined ajna, which makes me think that that is a place where, if you grew up in a very traditional household and you had very specific ideas about how to walk the path in a
Mhm.
defined ajna, that can get in there and kind of stay, right? And be in a place where you're just like, oh, well, I don't know how I feel in reality, but I know how I'm supposed to feel. I know how people tell me I'm supposed to feel, right? And so it can just sit in that space. And so I'd be curious. I wonder if that definition in your ajna has actually given you a specific, a very different experience of this projectory aura than
Yeah.
the other two.
Yeah, I think that could very well be. I mean, there was certainly, I wasn't grown up, I didn't grow up in a constricting household per
Yeah.
se, but it was pretty straightforward what the expectations were. And I certainly liked being a good girl and following that protocol, let's say, while I was also doing my own rebelling in certain other ways.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, So for the three of you, you've all known about your projectorness for a slightly different amount of time. I think Jyoti, you've probably known the longest. I'm just curious if any of you has anything shifted or have you shifted anything in your life when you found that out?
I found it curious.
Yeah.
I, you know, I'm very aware that, from a from a Western astrological model,
Mm,
I have a Pisces moon. And so I already know how sensitive I am walking into a room, feeling other people, sensing where they're coming from, especially in one-to-one settings. I already have been aware of that my whole life and worked with that. I'm still not sure
yeah.
what the projector model really entails. You know
Right.
what I mean? Because when I think of a projector, I mean, I just think of the word projector and I think about projecting out,
Mm,
and I'm more a receiving in kind of person, receptive. And although I can see the other part of that, like when I'm teaching or something, classes or whatever, I can see that projector as I see projector, projecting things out, sending things out. It was curious to me because I've been involved in this other Western astrological model for over 50 years, and it's like all of a sudden to think about exactly how this other system comes in with its own definition and maybe changes a little bit of my view of things. So I'm very curious.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I would just say quickly before I, pass it over to Linda and Janet that, for you in particular, like human design shares a bunch of the astrology that right? But the difference is, and I think this is kind of the innovation of human design, is that it brings all of that cosmological knowledge and energy and it maps it back in to our bodies. Right. And so I think that's the thing about human design that's really interesting. It's using all of this stuff that we've known about the cosmic energy, and then it's saying, hey, it actually has this very specific piece in your in a specific place in your body, right? Which I think is really interesting. So yeah. So anyway, back to Linda. How about you? Have you changed anything, or has anything shifted for you knowing this little bit about yourself?
Um, well, it's definitely confirmed that I need to wait for people to ask before I offer my view of things, especially like what Jody was saying, because we are so good at seeing people's whole selves, including the shadow parts of them. Um, this is definitely confirmed that it's important to wait for people to ask for that information and not just give it willy-nilly. The other thing that I'm wondering as I'm listening is, are we just more likely to see people as frequencies as opposed to solid beings? Because I was so drawn to energy psychology and that way of looking at people, um, is, and it's helpful that the world is starting to see people in terms of frequency now. That's comfortable for me. It's almost like I've been waiting for that to happen. So is that projectors more likely to see people as frequency?
That's really interesting. I haven't really like read that, but as you're talking, it makes me think about this undefined sacral that you all share, right? This open, receptive space that's always taking in the life force energy of others, right? And to me, that 100% would be like, so I'm a generator type, right? I'm transmitting life force out into the world, right? And you as projector types are receiving it, taking it in, and feeling through what that is. And so I could totally make the case that yes, a projector or any what we call non-energy type, somebody with an undefined sacral, would be, again, sampling that life force energy in a totally different way than I as a generator.
Mm.
Oh. How about you, Janet? You're the sound person.
Um, well, I'm interested to hear Jyoti describe also her take on the word projector,
Mm,
because I think that that's been a challenge for me also in this system, because I think of, is it the classic sort of psychological thing? I'm just projecting my feelings onto you, and that creates a confusion in terminology, because I understand as I review, no, this is about absorbing and focusing and being able to be present to people, and I don't quite understand how that is a projector.
yeah,
That term is not a perfect match for me.
yeah.
It's does it Do you have any insight about that, Christine?
Well, I will say that, when this system was channeled, it was channeled by, a human who had a lot of shadow, right? And the language that he chose or that he was given, I think in some ways he was given some language, it just doesn't land with us in ways that are
Yeah.
always useful, I think. And that is throughout the human design system. And so there are a bunch of people out there not using the language. But at this level, the projector type seems to stick. Most people still use that term, but I
Mm.
agree with you. It does not resonate for a lot of people, and it doesn't seem to fit the idea. Like, again, like if you think of a projector aura, this is a person whose aura is focused in on the other,
Yeah.
right? And I guess I could make the case that what it's doing is it's projecting its recognition, it's projecting its energy to see the other, right? But not in a negative way that we think of as a
As putting our feelings on someone else. So
right.
maybe it's just like thinking of that, the focus aspect, that like a movie projector back in the
Yeah.
day, had a narrow line
Yes.
of light and such. It's interesting to me to try to think, well, how might I rename that for myself, And I think, mentioning vibration, maybe a resonator. Would we say that the projector is a resonator type who sees the other person
Yeah.
and can reflect that back, can resonate, can say, I understand this about you because I resonate in this way.
Yeah.
It might, does that does that feel accurate to think of it that way?
It
I,
does to me.
It does to me too. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll keep using the word projector, but I think that if I hold it as resonator, that would work well for me. And that ties in with what I feel I'm trying to do in my energy work and what I've experienced in my energy work, which is that the more that I am seated and aligned with and in the space of my own highest self and essence, the more that can help the other person in the conversation or in the session to access that within themselves. So I've even at times offered energy work to some of my family members as a means of connecting with them
Mhm.
because we can resonate from it draws essence attracts essence, so it draws the conversation, the connection into essence, and it feels very real then. So that's where I'm going.
Yeah. No, I love that. And thank you for bringing us down that path. I think that is such a, that language is a real, I don't know, issue isn't the right word, but it does, I think, stop people because they're like, I don't get, that just doesn't resonate, right? That doesn't
Oh,
sound like me.
To use a word, right?
Right, exactly. It's such, you're right. It's the thing. And then, the other another type in human design is this reflector type, right? And they're a type that has no definition at all in their energy centers. Everything is wide open. And
Mm,
their aura is, and their purpose here is to reflect back the collective to itself, right? And so I've often in my own practice, I think of the projector type as the type to reflect back one person to, another to, you to another, yourself, right? You project, you reflect to the other themselves. That's what I feel like projectors often do, right?
mm,
Reflectors do it on the collective level, and projectors, I feel like, do it on the individual level. And we generator types need that, right? Like we're here to know ourselves, but we can't necessarily see ourselves as well until we have you projector types reflecting us back to ourselves. Does that make sense? That sounded like a lot of
Hmm.
a lot of we're playing with a lot of mirrors here, but
Yes, exactly. It was very much
all
like a
that
little fun
accurate.
house there. Does any of that resonate for any of you?
Mm,
Yeah, I was thinking that as we're seeing people pretty clearly and sort of showing them who they are, it's it seems a lot like what actors do. So if I go to the projector as, the projector onto a screen of like a film, the actor is giving us back how
Mm,
they see that character.
interesting. Yeah, I like that. I like that analogy. Huh. Yeah. How about you, Jyoti? I noticed you were nodding your head there.
yeah, I can relate to that, and it made me think of mirrors.
Yeah.
It made me think of mirroring and how the universe mirrors things for us all the time, and then perhaps we are that mirror sometimes for someone else,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially by our ability to resonate
Hmm.
with what's going on with someone else. Oh, I've been there, or I understand that, or I understand how that might feel for you, that kind of resonance.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the gifts of the projector type is even if they themselves haven't experienced that thing that that person's talking about, the mere act of recognizing and seeing the other and hearing the other, like you guys have a very special way of making others feel seen and recognized, right? This is part of this energetic aura. And so I don't think necessarily have to have the actual life experience to make, to give comfort to that person that like I totally see and recognize that experience that you've had, even
Mhm.
if I myself, haven't. right? I think
Hmm.
that's a real gift of y'all's. And I could see you all nodding, so that seems
Yeah.
like it might be
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. We're seen as incredibly empathic, and that's a good way to describe what it is. It's that we don't need to have had the experience exactly ourselves to be able to empathize. And so then we're seen as empaths because we have that ability. And yeah, I've noticed as a social worker that there are several people that especially if I'm working in a family situation, and the two people haven't had the same experience in the family, and they really can't understand where the other person is coming from. And I find that curious. It's, you know, it's like, why not? you know? Yeah.
I'm thinking about your use of the empathic element, Linda, and it seems to me also that whether, like, I don't consider myself an empath, but I consider myself a witnessing presence, which is similar and different, I think, in terms of definition. But that to me is what I can offer. I can't always understand precisely what the other person is saying, but I can witness their pain or their ecstasy or their confusion. I can witness it and share from that experience or share from my knowledge or my wisdom, my experience.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the corollary is also true for projectors, or maybe the opposite is also true. And this is something I think that a lot of projector types really struggle with, which is you need that recognition in return, right?
Yes.
And I think that it can be very difficult for projectors to see, to feel truly seen and recognized for their own gifts and talents. And
Mhm.
so I'm just curious if you can, if you either have experiences of that, or if maybe that isn't true for you. You're like, no, I don't need those people.
Um, I've I had that experience most of my life with my parents,
Mm,
and I just came to the conclusion, just very objectively in a way, that when they died, they'd be able to see who I really was.
mm,
Because they, in their cosmology, I was just a different egg. I was just really a different person with different agendas and different goals, and so, as an Aquarian, also, I have a different take on things sometimes. And so, being different is kind of like breathing. And it's not necessarily self chosen all the time, it's just my response to things. It's, I just have a different perspective or way of looking at something. And I made peace with that a long time ago. I had to, because it's who I was, or my approach. And but when I am seen, it's a whole different story.
Mhm.
I feel really met,
yeah.
Mhm.
and I can see a lot of times with a client, I can see where they're coming from. I can sense it, I can feel it, and I can make contact with them, as it's called in some systems. I can make contact with them in a way that they feel seen and heard and accepted. And I feel like that's my gift, because in those situations, because it creates emotional safety, and then the person can be whoever they need to be, and something real will happen there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I find that I'm somewhat surprised when people see me.
Mm,
I stopped expecting it quite a while ago. Um, so, and I had a similar experience to Jyoti where I didn't feel seen by not just my parents, but most of my family members. Still don't really.
Mhm.
Um, And and yet one of the things that would happen with my mother and I is gift giving. Okay, so I would give my mother the gift that she absolutely wanted, and I knew that that was the gift that she absolutely wanted, and and she would give me a gift that she wanted.
Right.
And she was so frustrated by why is it that you're always able to give me exactly what I want? And I give you something and you're kind of underwhelmed, you know? And it almost got to the point where it was uncomfortable to receive gifts from her because I knew she was hoping that fine, this has got to be the one. This is going to be the one that she definitely wants. And it's just she couldn't not give me what she wanted. Um, so I stopped expecting that people would see me, and I'm somewhat surprised when it happens. It's nice to be in this arena where I feel like I am seen.
Janet, how about you?
Well,
It's okay. You can have the
yeah,
the
I'm
opposite
just smiling.
experience.
I'm just smiling because my husband, in terms of recognition, my husband, who is one of nine children in birth order up towards the top, I'm one of two children and I'm the younger child. So he would call my need and desire for recognition the younger child, youngest child syndrome, that I just, here I am, look at me, And there is some truth to that, but anyhow, I don't know. It's interesting that I played piano and had a little audience experience here and there, and now I love being in my Toastmasters group and having a little experience there of being in front of a group and
Yeah.
being seen and heard. Recognition, it does mean something to me to be recognized and have some level of appreciation for who I am and what I'm doing. I think I am less, I think this category more from worthiness issues and kind of
Mhm.
having grown through some of that and not needing it in the same way, but enjoying recognition. I'm not sure if I'm on exactly the right track with recognition as where we started. So pull me back in here.
No, no, you're good. I mean, just that sense, like in general, the projector type really, like I can be recognized as a generator type, and I'm like, cool. But a projector type is like, oh, you get me, right? Like it's sending out that recognition, and then when it receives it back, it just feels so powerful. Like
Yeah,
you see me for my gifts. Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah.
And
It's
I think, you guys have all created, worlds, practices, right? Where you get the opportunity to have people come to you specifically for your gifts, right? So you may get that right. You've nicely set up this loop of like, look, I'm actually doing this amazing thing. People are coming to me, getting this guidance, and then, they are happy about it and they can let me know that, right?
I'm thinking that there is this element in the second chakra of being about the one-on-one relationship, and that's of
Mhm.
course where a great deal of my client work is.
Yeah.
I do some teaching, I've written a book, do the speaking through Toastmasters, things like that, and that's more individual with root chakra, tribe, and community. And so it's both arenas are satisfying for me to be acknowledged, to have felt that what I have offered has been of help and service to people.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, and I think the final thing we haven't really talked about it, but it's such a huge thing. You guys hinted at it a little bit, is this idea of invitation, right? Of being invited
Mm.
to share this knowledge and wisdom and insight that you carry, right? And so I think that for a lot of projector types, and I think you've all touched on it, like there's this ability to just naturally see both the good and the bad in any situation, in any person, in any, frequency, essentially. But there is this real energy in the projector that if this recognition of the other is not invited, is not welcome, then it just won't be heard. And that I think is something I talk to a lot of projectors about, and that resonates for them. Um, but I also want to be real clear, like this invitation is not like, will you show me my shadow? Like it does not have to be like that. Um, so if any, have any of you been playing around with this idea of invitation? Have you changed at all, like how you do deliver your knowledge and wisdom? I'm just curious if that's a thing that you're experimenting with at all, or if that even resonates.
Someone hires me to help them learn more about themselves, I assume that's an
Yeah,
invitation.
exactly.
I'm still
Yes.
careful, I still realize that, can go slow with that. You don't have to like bombard people with the whole picture necessarily. But yeah, I assume that when people hire me to help them understand themselves better, that that is an invitation.
Yes. I think you're right. I agree.
Yeah.
And I agree with that also. And I also remember when you, Christine, mentioned that to me about
Mhm.
the invitation. And it surprised me and resonated with me in equal measure. It was like, yes, yes, I don't necessarily step into situations and then, say what I see, because a lot of times that's not what's being asked for,
Yeah.
you know. But when it is asked for, I'm ready.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it, that all three of us have set up our professional lives to be, as Linda says, hired by someone to help them. And that's the golden invitation. Of course, not everyone who comes is really ready to be helped and receive, but that is the setup. So for me, I find it happening more in family dynamics or friend dynamics, and recognizing that those people haven't hired me, so have needed to learn to discern carefully, is this a moment when
Yeah.
my projecting work would be helpful for this person, or is it not? And maybe even to out and out ask them. I sometimes find if someone is kind of asking for help, but it's not completely clear, I'll say, this is kind of moving into my professional realm here. Do you want to go there? And try to be more clarifying about that. Or do you just want me to say, I know this is really tough? Because that may be exactly what is wanted. And so for me, learning how to put some brakes on it so that I'm not just, "Well, let me tell you, let me resonate with you, let me advise you, let me make suggestions," just to be able to be, a presence and to nod and be supportive is one way of then avoiding feeling the bitterness you mentioned earlier in something you wrote to us about this, the disappointment in not being welcomed in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. It's an art form that projectors can work on too. Like you can garner invitations. You can find out, right? You can ask, is this something like just like you said, this is in my professional wheelhouse? Is it something do you want to go there? Right? And then I think the real trick for projector types is when the person says no, for you not to go there. Right? Because you still see the stuff and you still are sure it's going to make things better. Right?
Yeah.
Breaks, learning the breaks, right?
Right.
I
Exactly.
call it boundaries.
Yeah.
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 Having boundaries and what hat you put on. Am I dealing with family and maybe they want to hear what I think, maybe they don't, you know, um, or friendship or client work. I mean, it's kind of all different hats in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've actually had to put boundaries around some of my friendships where they started to want my professional advice all the time, and I felt exploited. I felt like my boundaries were being violated. So I've had to be aware of that as well. Not only do I have to hold my boundaries, but I expect people to hold their boundaries too.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
by holding
true.
yours, that creates the dynamic. So, yeah.
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 Yeah, that's awesome. Um, well, that's a lot. We've gone over a lot of things. Do any of you have any questions about projectorness or anything else that you might want to discuss while we're here?
Well, I don't know if it's appropriate or not. We didn't talk
Oh,
about this
I'm sure it'll be fine,
beforehand.
Jyoti. Go for it.
I would just like to know Linda and Janet's sun sign and even moon sign, just from a Western astrological point of view. And that would give me more information about the projector in me as an Aquarian with a Pisces moon,
Mhm.
and how that might look differently for each person.
Mhm. So I have a Libra sun. And so when you say you can see the good and the bad, I'm always weighing, balancing things. And I have a Leo moon and a Virgo rising.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
I am so badly languaged in astrology. I can tell you my sun sign, which is my birth sign, right?
Yes.
Is
Yes.
Gemini. I'm sorry, I've had charts done. I can't even tell you my moon sign.
That's okay.
I might
That-
be able to. Your moon is in gate 10, which is, I should know that. I don't know that I can do it quickly either, actually. I
I
still
have
have,
such fascination for astrology and respect for it, and not a working knowledge for myself.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, actually, I will say that as kind of another thing that projector types are known to be great at is mastering systems, right? And so I think the three of you are all excellent examples of not only do you each have, you have multiple systems that you've mastered over the course of your time of your days. So I think that that too is also very interesting. That ability to really just pull information into your head and make sense of it is a very projectory kind of thing to do. So thanks for being examples of that also.
Yeah, I think we've all gathered tools from different with different perceptions, to bring it into maybe a central core body of work, let's say. Because Linda, you mentioned that you went from social work to more in-depth study and looking at family systems and that kind of thing. And Janet, you looked at music and now use sound healing, which is, vibrational
Yeah,
energy work. I mean, it's, yeah, and how it's expanded.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love that. Well, ladies, I totally appreciate your time. I really hope that this was, I don't know, it was super fun for me. I hope it was some fun for you. And I hope other people also get just a better sense of what this, projector energy is like and how it can show up in all sorts of ways. I think you guys have been excellent examples of just the full range of what that lovely guiding energy. And now I love this whole like frequency idea, like you see the frequency of the other, or you're ingesting the frequency of the other. There's something going on there I think you're absolutely right about. So thanks for bringing that to me. So I totally appreciate it.
Yes.
Awesome.
Jyoti, you asked about the astrological. We're all air signs, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is that that's interesting, I thought.
Interesting. I'm an
Absolutely.
Aquarius too, so
Yes.
it's
Yes.
a
All
lot.
four of us are air. Yes.
Huh, interesting.
Yes.
Jyoti, we'll have to have some discussion about that. Maybe we're going to have some little human design astrology thing going on so that I can learn more about astrology. All right, ladies, thanks so much.
You,
I
Christine.
really appreciate it. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna